I stood behind that cold marble pillar at my son's wedding reception, clutching my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white, listening to the woman who had just married my only child tell her maid of honor exactly how she planned to destroy me. The grand ballroom at the Riverside Country Club was filled with the scent of white roses and expensive perfume, the air humming with laughter and clinking crystal. But in my little corner of the world, the temperature had dropped to absolute zero. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I had just stepped away to catch my breath, to take a moment to be proud of David, who looked so handsome in his navy tuxedo. But then I heard my name, whispered with a laugh that sounded like glass breaking. "The plan is simple," Jessica said, swirling her champagne. "We give it 6 months, maybe a year. Document everything. When she forgets names, when she repeats stories, when she seems confused, then we have her evaluated." Her friend giggled, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "Isn't that a bit harsh?" Jessica's voice dropped, smooth and venomous. "She's 63 and alone in that big house. It's actually mercy. Plus, David deserves that beach house after everything she's put him through." My blood turned to ice. The beach house. The sanctuary my late husband Robert and I bought 30 years ago. The place where David learned to surf, where we spent every summer. Where Robert held my hand on the deck and promised to love me until the end of time. Jessica wasn't just talking about real estate. She was talking about erasing my life to fund her future. I stepped back from the pillar, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Jessica caught my eye across the room and waved, that perfect porcelain smile plastered on her face. I waved back because that's what mothers do. We smile and we wave and we pretend our hearts aren't being ripped out of our chests. But let me tell you something about pretending. I've had 63 years of practice and I was done. I walked straight to the bar, my heels clicking a rhythm of war on the polished floor. "Double whiskey," I told the bartender, my voice steady as a rock. He raised an eyebrow. "Rough day?" he asked. I looked him in the eye. "You could say that." I took a sip, feeling the burn settle in my stomach, waking up parts of me I thought had gone to sleep when Robert died. "Tell me," I said, "do you believe in karma?" He chuckled, wiping down the counter. "In my line of work, ma'am, I've seen enough to believe in everything." "Good answer," I whispered. I finished the whiskey and set the glass down with a definitive clink. That glass wasn't just empty. It was a gavel coming down. The trial of Jessica Morrison had just begun, and she didn't even know she was the defendant. If you're watching this, honey, pull up a chair and pour yourself something warm. Because what happened next changed everything. And if you've ever had a woman try to come between you and your child, you're going to want to hear this. David appeared beside me a moment later, loosening his tie, oblivious to the fact that his new bride was plotting his mother's institutionalization. "Mom, you look pale. You feeling okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing with that familiar worry I used to soothe with a kiss on the forehead. "Just tired, sweetheart." "It's been a long day," I lied. "Well, Jessica wants to talk to you about Christmas plans. She has some ideas about traditions." I bet she did. I bet her traditions involved me signing power of attorney over the turkey. "How lovely. We'll chat later," I said, forcing a smile that felt tight on my face. David squeezed my shoulder and headed back to his bride, and I watched him go, remembering the little boy who used to build sandcastles with me. That little boy was gone. In his place stood a 32-year-old man who had spent the last 8 months defending a woman he'd known for less than a year over the mother who had raised him alone. To understand why that whiskey tasted like vengeance, you have to go back to the beginning. 8 months earlier, David had brought Jessica home. She was everything you'd expect a man like David to choose. Blonde, 28, with one of those smiles that could sell ice to penguins. "Mom, this is Jessica," David had said, practically glowing. "Mrs. Cooper," Jessica had gushed, giving me one of those too tight hugs. "David has told me so much about you." Even then something felt off. It was too polished. "Please call me Maggie," I said. We sat in my living room and she complimented everything. My antique vases, my coffee, my curtains. "How did you two meet?" I asked. "At the gym," David jumped in before she could answer. She was struggling with the weights, and I offered to help. Jessica laughed. "David's being modest." I wasn't struggling. I was pretending to struggle. I'd been watching him work out for weeks. At the time I thought it was charming. Now looking back, I realize it was the only honest thing she ever said. She was always calculating, always pretending to be weaker than she was to get what she wanted. She told me she used to work in social services but was transitioning into wellness coaching, social services, mental health evaluations. I should have paid more attention to that resume. Over the next few weeks, Jessica became a constant presence. She'd show up for dinner uninvited and offer unsolicited advice about my finances. "You know, Maggie," she said one evening, "David mentioned you handle all your own investments. That must be so stressful at your age." I stiffened. "I've been managing money since before you were born, sweetheart." "Of course," she smiled. "I just worry about you being all alone in this big house." Alone. She said it like it was a terminal disease. The worst part was watching David change. My son, who used to call me every Sunday, suddenly became distant. "Jessica thinks we spend too much time together," he told me. "She says it's not healthy for a man my age to be so dependent on his mother." Dependent? He had been living in my pool house rent-free for 2 years while he found himself, but I bit my tongue. 6 months before the wedding, they moved out of the pool house and into a rental property I owned on Maple Street. "It'll be perfect, Mom," David had said. "We can really start building our life together." "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Have you thought about when you might want to take over the mortgage payments?" His face fell. We're family. Can't we work something out?" Jessica reached across the table. "Maggie, maybe we could do a gradual transition. Start with utilities, then work up to partial mortgage payments." I'd hate for him to feel overwhelmed. Within a month they had moved in. The utility bills stopped coming to me, but the mortgage payments never started. Next month came and went. When I drove by the house one afternoon, I saw a brand new BMW in the driveway. David's old Honda was nowhere to be seen. When I called him about it, he got defensive. Jessica needed reliable transportation for her new business. We got a great deal. "Speaking of deals, when might you start contributing to the mortgage?" "Look, Mom," Jessica thinks. "Well, we both think you're being a little controlling about the money stuff." Controlling? For wanting my 32-year-old son to pay his own bills. I had let it slide. I had let the unpaid rent slide, the disrespect slide, the distance slide. All for the sake of keeping the peace for the wedding. But standing in that ballroom, hearing her plan to have me committed to steal my beach house, the slide was over. The peace was dead. The Monday morning after the wedding, while the happy couple was presumably packing for their honeymoon, I was sitting in my lawyer's office. Thomas Hartwell had been our family attorney for 15 years. "Margaret, are you certain about this?" "Absolutely certain. Both properties, the house on Maple Street where they are currently living, and the beach house in Monterey." Thomas leaned back. "May I ask what precipitated this decision?" "I'm 63 years old, Thomas. I want to simplify my portfolio. I want them liquidated properly, discreetly, and quickly. David will be entitled to notification as your heir. Not if I'm not dead, he won't. Both properties are in my name alone." "Legally, yes. But Margaret, think about the family implications." "Thomas, I heard my daughter-in-law planning to put me in a home so she could take the beach house. I think the family implications are already quite clear." Thomas's eyes widened. "I see. And the timeline? Price them to sell. I want clean, fast transactions." I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. One more thing I had told Thomas. "I want you to research Jessica Morrison. I want to know everything. Call it maternal instinct. Call it paranoia. I called it survival." They came back from their honeymoon to an eviction notice. The call from David came on a Thursday morning. "Mom, we need to talk. Now." I drove to Maple Street. David opened the door looking disheveled. "We got a notice," he said. "The house is being sold. They want us out in 30 days. "How strange. Who's selling it?" "Very funny, Mom. You know exactly who's selling it." I walked past him into the living room. Jessica was there, her arms crossed, her tan from the honeymoon fading into a flush of anger. "Maggie, you can't do this," she said. "I sold my house. There's a difference." David stared at me. "This is our home. We've been living here for months." "On my dime," I said. "You had money for a BMW. You had money for a wedding. You had money for a honeymoon. But you didn't have money for the roof over your head. You're punishing us, Jessica spat. I'm protecting myself, I corrected. Oh, and David? The beach house is sold too. In case Jessica was counting on that. The silence in the room was deafening. Jessica's eyes narrowed, and for a second, I saw the predator behind the mask. You'll regret this, Maggie, she whispered. I doubt it, I said and walked out. I didn't hear from them for 3 weeks. Then the trap sprang. Jessica called, her voice dripping with fake concern. Maggie, David's been really struggling since the eviction. He's been forgetting things. Getting confused. I'm worried about his mental health. And yours. Mine. Yes. This erratic behavior. Selling the houses. It's not like you. I think we need a family meeting. I knew exactly what this was. The plan I'd heard at the wedding was being accelerated. That sounds appropriate, I said. Why don't you come over Tuesday? Tuesday morning the cavalry arrived. David, Jessica, a doctor I didn't know, and a nurse. Mom, we need to talk, David said, unable to meet my eyes. The man in the suit stepped forward. Mrs. Cooper. I'm Dr. Franklin from Serenity Springs Mental Health Facility. Your family has expressed concerns about your welfare. Jessica moved closer, placing a hand on my arm. Maggie, we're here because we love you. The property sales, the mood swings. We just want to make sure you're okay. Dr. Franklin can evaluate you properly, David mumbled. Evaluate me? For what? Cognitive decline, Jessica said softly. It's actually mercy, Maggie. You shouldn't be alone in this big house. There it was. The exact words from the wedding. I see. I looked at my son. David, do you believe I'm incompetent? I believe you need help, Mom. And Jessica knows how to get it. He was broken, manipulated completely. Fine, I said. I'll go for the evaluation. Jessica's eyes lit up. She thought she had one. She thought the bewildered old widow was folding. She had no idea I had already made 3 phone calls that morning. I spent 3 days at Serenity Springs. I took their memory tests. I drew their clocks. I answered their questions. And I waited. I waited for the package my lawyer had sent to arrive. On the 3rd day, the facility doctor, Dr. Summers, sat me down. Mrs. Cooper, I don't see any evidence of cognitive impairment. You're free to go. Jessica and David were waiting in the lobby to take me home. Presumably to a smaller facility they had picked out. I'm so glad you're okay, Mom, David said, hugging me. We were so worried. Welcome back, Maggie, Jessica said. Why don't we have a celebration dinner tonight? At your house. That sounds lovely, I said. 7 o'clock. At 7 p.m. they knocked on my door. But they weren't the only guests. Come in, I said. There's someone I'd like you to meet. I stepped aside to reveal a tall man in a trench coat standing by the fireplace. Jessica froze. The color drained from her face so fast she looked like a ghost. Hello, Jess, the man said. Been a while. David looked confused. Mom, who is this? David, meet Detective Danny Morrison. Jessica's half-brother. Jessica turned to run, but 2 uniformed officers stepped out from the kitchen. Danny, what are you doing here? She stammered. My job, he said. Mrs. Cooper, would you like to do the honors? I'd be delighted. I picked up the manila envelope from the coffee table. David, Jessica has done this before. 3 times. She targets families, marries the son, isolates the mother, and uses her background in social services to orchestrate mental health commitments to steal assets. That's a lie. Jessica screamed. Is it? I pulled out a paper. Nevada. Fraud conviction 5 years ago. Arizona. Margaret Thornfield, 83, died in a facility while you spent her savings. That engagement ring you're wearing? It was hers. David looked at the ring on her finger. He looked at the woman he had married less than 2 months ago. Jessica. They were sick, David. I was helping them. She cried, desperate now. You targeted me, David whispered. You targeted my mother. She targeted your inheritance, I said. But unfortunately for her, your mother pays attention. Detective Morrison stepped forward with handcuffs. Jessica Morrison, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, falsifying medical documentation, and elder abuse. As they dragged her out, screaming obscenities that would make a sailor blush, David collapsed onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. The silence after the police left was heavy. David looked up, his eyes red. "Mom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything, sweetheart. I almost let her put you away. I almost lost you." "Almost doesn't count, David. Can you ever forgive me?" I sat beside him and took his hand. It was the hand I had held when he was a baby, the hand I had held when his father died. "David, I forgave you the moment you opened your eyes. But the houses are sold. I'm keeping the money. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. He nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. "I know. I will." 6 months later, I sat on the deck of my new condo, smaller, yes, but peaceful. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. David was doing better. He had a job, a real one. He was in therapy. We were rebuilding brick by brick. Jessica was serving 5 years in federal prison. Justice had been served, cold and satisfying, just like that double whiskey. People ask me if I'm lonely. I tell them no. I have my peace. I have my dignity. And I have the knowledge that when the wolf came to the door, I didn't hide. I opened it and invited the wolf in for dinner. Being a mother means loving unconditionally. But it also means knowing when to stop feeding the hand that bites you. Some lessons are expensive, but freedom is priceless. Thanks for listening. If you've ever had to fight for your family, or from your family, let me know in the comments. And remember, darlings, never underestimate a woman with a plan and a good lawyer.